Okay, you may start now.
Okay, we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to officially call the Convention Tourism, Arts, and Humanities Committee to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Ingracia,
Present.
Alderman Gunther,
Here.
Alderwoman Rice,
Present.
Alderman Todd,
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Present.
Alderwoman Peel,
Present.
Alderman Stevens, Chair Oldenburg,
Present.
Alderman Stevens. We have 7 present. We have a quorum.
Okay. We need to approve the minutes from Thursday, September 22nd, 2022's committee meeting.
I move we approve the minutes from our previous meeting and the date you just mentioned.
Second.
Alderwoman Ingracia,
Aye.
Alderman Gunther,
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel,
Aye.
Alderman Stevens,
Aye.
Chair Oldenburg.
Aye.
We have 8 aye votes.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Clerk. First thing on the agenda, item on the agenda is board bills for review. We will have the committee review and take public comment on board bill number 130. Is our sponsor on Alderman Kodar.
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Great. Sir, you tell me between you and Ms. Ratcliffe how you kind of want to proceed. I know there's a fair number of folks from city departments on that can give backdrop. Also, I know there's a few guest speakers that look like they are the agents of the convention center and various city departments. So you let me know how you want to kind of proceed with their testimony. I don't know if we have anyone from the public that has signed up. Madam Clerk, can you inform me of that? If we have any speakers,
No, I don't see any speakers from the public.
public speaking
We
in
have 2
opposition?
guest
or-
speakers, but nothing from.
Yeah. I don't see a need to, the folks that are listed here as city staff and the guest speakers, which are of course agents of the city and the convention center, I don't see a need to swear them in. So we can proceed as you like, Alderman Kotar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think what I'll do is give some brief introductory remarks, throw it to Mr. Boyd, the mayor's chief of staff, and then to Kitty and her team to sort of explain, what their plan is. And then we can take questions and whoever's best suited can answer those questions.
Great.
So just by way of background for members of the committee, you all may remember a couple of years ago, and Kitty can give the timeline, but we approved $105 million package that was half of the funding for a convention center expansion for the AC Next Gen project. St. Louis County was responsible for the other half of that project, another $105 million. There were many delays. I think you're all familiar with those that led to a situation where the county didn't really issue its bonds and put this project well behind schedule. And during that time, construction costs skyrocketed. And so now we find ourselves in a situation where basically all the money that was bonded out has to be used to simply get phase 1 done. And there's a hole in trying to get phase 2 completed. And Mr. Boyd and the mayor's team, as part of these negotiations for how to divide up the RAM settlement money, were able to secure $30 million from the Rams pie, we'll call it, specifically for the convention center. And so per the terms of that settlement agreement, we've got this $30 million that we need to appropriate towards the convention center's project. If we don't do so before the end of June, the money reverts back to the RSA. So the RSA, which manages the dome. So basically, we're getting this done. So there is some money for phase two. And the folks from the convention center and Kitty and her construction team will present some plans. Basically, they got to have an option C. Yes, they've got their big project they'd like to get done, but in the event they can't secure the sort of gap the funding gap they're still going to have on phase two, what can they use this $30 million for? What can they get done? And I think they've got some proposals to share with us there. But sort of from our perspective as a city, like there's no reason not to do this, right? The money is per the settlement specifically for the convention center. If we don't appropriate it to them to spend on this second phase, it's going back to the RSA, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. So I'm hoping that, after you've heard all this today, the board will, give its sign of approval and pass this with the do pass recommendation. So Kitty and her team can make the necessary plans to keep moving the convention center expansion, even if it's in a pared down version, moving that forward. So with that, I'll defer to Mr. Boyd if he's got anything to add, and then we'll turn it over to Kitty and her team for their presentation.
Thank you, Alderman Coder. And I think you summed up this issue very well and kind of where we find ourselves today. I want to start by saying that that Kitty and members of the CVC are in this predicament. And it's really unfortunate because a lot of the reason we are here today was beyond her control in the sense of the delays that were well covered in the media, and then also the rapid kind of change in the cost of building these types of projects during the delay. So we do not, we want to make clear we don't find fault with the CVC, but we are where we are today. And during the course of the settlement negotiations with the RSA and St. Louis County in the Rams case, towards the end, we started conversations on how to help the convention center, or how that could potentially be a part of this settlement process. And all the parties agreed that that should be a part of the settlement. Legally, the RSA cannot spend money on the convention center, if I'm not mistaken. And so they had no legal mechanism to do so, and the city volunteered to help as just kind of a pass-through for these funds, for the $30 million funds. And we were able to get the RSA to agree to that under the condition that if we did not spend those funds, then they would revert back to the RSA. So that is where we are. I know there may be outstanding questions as to how the CVC is going to utilize these funds. And I think those are conversations that we may not have all the answers to today. There are ideas and concepts, but I do want to make clear that the mayor's office has not committed any additional funding to this project. We realize that's a conversation that would need to be held in tandem with held with our governing partners, including the Board of Aldermen. So we have not, the mayor's office has not committed any additional funding to this project. Those types of conversations would certainly need to be held with the Board of Aldermen, or the Board of Aldermen and the Comptroller's office. So the decision as to how these funds will ultimately be spent, I think, is an ongoing conversation. It's an important conversation, But to kind of highlight kind of why I think this is important to pass out is because we did include, and all the parties did agree to the language that says that this money has to be appropriated before June 30th, 2023. So that is the operative deadline that everyone is working towards, and the board essentially has the ability to help advance this $30 million towards completion of the convention center expansion.
Thanks, Jared. Chairman, if it's all right, I'll turn it over to Kitty and her team to give some remarks on sort of where they are, what's been done, what's under construction, and what they hope to get done.
Thank you very much, Alderman Coder and Mr. Boyd. I think you've set this up very nicely in terms of explaining where we are. And I'll get into a little more detail about the team overall, but Chairman Oldenburg, I want to thank you for coordinating this meeting, and I want to thank all the aldermen for interrupting your days to discuss this. This is a very important project for our city, for our region, and we've been working very hard with a fairly large team. The Board of Public Service actually manages this project because the convention center is owned by the St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation. I became the lead person because we were trying to get funding from the county and the city at the same time, and we had to try to figure out how to bridge that. But there is a coordination team that is comprised of representatives of a lot of different entities and a project team. And so a lot of smart people working on this that know a lot more about construction than I do. I'm just kind of the industry person. And so I'm very much looking forward to just reviewing with you a little bit about the project and then being able to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to try to share my screen if I have the ability to do that here. So give me a second. Screen, there we go. And everybody see that all right?
Yes, we can.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So we call this project, we gave the project a name, AC Next Gen. And the reason for that is that the convention center itself has been here since 1977. It was an initiative by then Mayor Cervantes to try to attract more convention business and national events to St. Louis. Prior to that time, the only facility that was able to be used for that was what used to be called the Kiel, which had a convention center exhibition hall kind of in it, and had been built 40, 50 years earlier. So, and the reason that it was placed at the north end of downtown was to try to develop the north end, which in the 70s had been deteriorating. And so they put a building there that has served the community very well as an economic development tool since 1977. In the early 90s, there was a southern expansion that was done, and then the dome was added, which opened in the end of 1995. There's really been no development other than some very good refresh and replacement of some HVAC units and things like that when needed over time. So we've had a workhorse of a building that's done a great job in terms of economic development for all these decades. But it's not necessarily the building today that can compete with what we're seeing in other cities. So we set out to try to make a change to that. America Center, just to kind of put in context what America Center is all about. I know some of you probably have questions about where we are in the convention business since the pandemic. There was a lot of concern that businesses wouldn't be returning in terms of doing events. And I'm pleased to tell you that that's not the case. Our convention business is getting stronger with every passing month. 21 was better than 20, and 22 was better than 21, and 23 is better than 22. We have 52 weeks in a year, and right now we have 52 events. Well, actually, I take that back. We had, as of this morning, before 9 o'clock this morning, we had 52 events. So I need to update this. We just announced we have Beyonce coming in August of this year. So we now have 53 events booked in the building this year. But it's about 1.8 million in terms of attendee days. And for the most part, those people are from out of town. With every event, there's some percentage of people who are local, but most of these are people who come from out of town. They bring new money into our community, and it's not seasonal. We love our sports teams, but our sports teams are seasonal. They have periods of several months where they make great economic impact, but they're not year round. And this provides economic activity year round, which puts people to work year round and supports the businesses on a year round basis. It's about $265 million in new money that comes into the community every year from people coming from outside, and more than 3,300 jobs that are supported on an annual basis. It also creates a very positive impression. One of the things that we hear often is that people are worried about, how do tourists feel about coming to St. Louis, and do they have a positive or negative perception? When people come here, 90% of them, when we survey them, the convention delegates, they tell us they have a very positive experience, both in America Center and in St. Louis. So we're creating ambassadors who go back home in a way that no other industry in our region does. So it's very important that we have a tool that helps us to compete for that business. And when we have people coming in from out of town, we have to provide all the basic essentials to actually be able to operate the convention center. This is a one-year snapshot that just shows you on an annual basis how much money we spend to provide goods and services for the events that are coming into the convention center. And this year, this one snapshot provides $14 million that we spent with local in-state vendors, 36% of which were minority or women-owned businesses in Missouri. So this does make an impact, even from people who don't even realize they're in the convention business or that they have a benefit from that. Our package is strong. The building is one thing. The building is the tool itself, but the package has to be strong. If we don't have the tool, we don't get past the starting line, but we have to have lots of other elements. And very fortunately, you can kind of see this snapshot of downtown. The majority of the events that are taking place in America Center, the majority of the people who are coming to those events are looking for a hotel package that's in the downtown area. When we have some of the even larger events, we do push outside of downtown, and we push out into the county and, sometimes even into Illinois in terms of room blocks. But the essential piece is, how many rooms do we have in the downtown area, and what are the brands, and what are there for things for people to do? And we have a very strong package. Not only do we have the venues that you just saw on the map with the hotels, but we have lots of fun things for people to do in the free time that they have when the convention is going on a free night, on their arrival day, when they're doing registration. If there's a session that they're not interested in seeing, but they've got a couple of hours, so they take off, they can go to the Union Station and the Wheel, they can go to Ballpark Village, the City Museum. There's just all kinds of things for people to do. But as great as our package is, the borders around the convention center itself haven't always been so great. And when the southern expansion was done in the early 90s, as I mentioned earlier, they did a beautiful facade on Washington Avenue, but all the rest of the area of the convention center has been pretty stark. And we haven't always been the best neighbors that we could be as a result. These big, huge walls, trucks coming in, their headlights shining in people's windows, parking garages around the building that were owned by private entities that weren't really well maintained. Overall, it wasn't really the best impression of what we want St. Louis to be shown as. And we want to be proud of the experience that people have when they come into our community. And as a result, that hasn't always been the case. What you're seeing on this one is two different parking garages, both of which are gone, by the way. The C9, which was at 9th and Cole, and what we called the Quadrani garage because of the family that owned it on 7th Street. Both of those were not very well maintained, as you can tell from the exterior on the C9. And the Quadrani garage was actually condemned by the building inspector as the rebar was exposed, concrete was falling. It was really a danger. And then some surface parking lots that also don't create a very safe feeling and a secure feeling when people are walking from their hotels, to and from their hotels and the convention center, sometimes very late at night. So while we've been working on this, and Alderman Coder said a number of years ago, it was actually in 2018 that the Board of Aldermen passed the ordinance. And in the spring of 2019, the County Council passed their ordinance, both agreeing to jointly come up with a $210 million project. You can see that this is a snapshot of some of the cities that we compete against. Everybody else has been improving their product. There are one or two new builds in this. Really, as I look at this list, there are only two new builds on this. Nashville built a brand new convention center, and Oklahoma City just built a brand new convention center. But everybody else took the building that they had and they tried to figure out how to make improvements to it to keep up in terms of being able to attract this very lucrative business for their communities. And when we do that and we make that improvement to our communities, it's the same in theirs. We keep people in our community working, we keep the businesses going, and that's really what the convention center is supposed to be. It is a tool for economic development. So the Board of Aldermen approved that, the mayor, the comptroller at the time approved that in 2018. The county executive and the county council approved it in 2019, and we assembled a coordination team because this was really a complicated project. It's a city-owned building, but it was being funded in part by the county. And we had cooperation by the Land Clearance for Redevelopment Authority and the St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation, which owns the building, as well as the city, the county, and the Convention and Visitors Commission, of which I'm the president, really serving as the technical advisor on the business, the industry, what the customers need. We assembled a group of customers to provide feedback to us as a focus group, and doing that piece of it. And then that coordination team selected a project team. And the project team is the Board of Public Service, which actually manages this project for you. Kwame Building Group, who was selected to be the program manager, and we're joined on this call by Craig Lucas, who is that program manager and is available for any questions that you have. The coordination team selected Fentress Architects as the lead architect. They have many subcontractors, including many local companies. They aren't locally based, but they were far and away the most experienced team as it pertained to these types of projects in our industry and understanding what convention centers of today needed. And then Explore St. Louis, again, that's our DBA for the Convention and Visitors Commission, providing technical advice both from the operation of the building as well as from the industry and what the customers wanted. And so that team put together the full scope of the AC Next Gen project, keeping the Dome as it is, as a flexible multi-purpose stadium and venue that is used by a lot of conventions in conjunction with the convention center, and also its own separate events apart from the convention center. But it really is an essential piece of the convention complex. The convention center itself, we needed to expand the loading docks and cover them, enhance them so that we are improving the experience for the neighborhood. We needed to expand the exhibit space. That allowed us to actually expand the loading docks because we were able to redesign the exhibit space so that we expanded on a straight linear fashion, east to west, and will allow us to more than double the number of docks. And then a small piece, which actually isn't called out on here, but you'll see it in a minute, which was to add a food farm on the west side of that expansion that the chefs could use for local foods to be able to use in the meal preparation, and also to provide a little bit of a green space for the attendees. Redesigning and enhancing the current exhibit space, converting some of that current exhibit space to a large ballroom, adding a west access point, turning a surface lot into an outdoor space, and then some aesthetic improvements to the building, a couple of which are called out here, but there are others that you'll see in a minute. The key one really being the enhanced Washington Avenue entrance. So that's the full scope of the project. As Alderman Coder and Mr. Boyd explained, we found ourselves in the midst of a delay with the county council when it actually came to issuing their bonds later on. And then also the pandemic pushing up some of the costs and creating some supply chain issues. And because of the concerns about the supply chain issues, we decided to divide the project into two, Project 1 and Project 2. And the reason for doing that is that Project 1, which is the building of the new loading docks and the new exhibit hall, requires a tremendous amount of steel. And there was really concern with the supply chain issues that there was really long lead time in ordering steel before the project could be started. But if we were able to break it into two pieces, we could go out to bid on Project 1 sooner and select a general contractor and get that steel ordered so that we could actually begin the construction sooner. And so Project 1, which is the expansion of the loading docks, the addition of the new hall, making it contiguous to the existing halls, adding the food garden, and demolishing the 1960s era garage, which was the one that I referred to before as the Quadrani garage. All of that is Project 1, and all of that is underway. It's funded and underway. Here's just a couple of images to show you where we are with this. The before is actually the C9 garage, which was there. This should actually have three photos. It should have before with the C9 garage, the current underway construction, and the after, which is the completion of the expansion with an additional block added to the exhibit space and doubling the number of loading docks, expanding the roof line to the north, and then covering those docks so that what happens today and has happened every day since 1977 is that the trucks are backing into the loading docks, shining their lights into the residents across the streets, homes. And that happens at 5 a.m. and it happens at 2 a.m. and every time in between. And so what we will do with this project is ensure that that doesn't happen going forward. We're correcting that which happened in the past. And that goes back again to the design. The design in the 70s, that's the way it was done. Today, we know we can actually build loading docks that the trucks can go in and turn around, unload their freight, and then pull out and leave without impacting the neighborhood, and all undercover, all behind a wall. And so we're very excited about that because it's a massive improvement to the neighborhood, as well as giving us the additional docks that we need and the additional exhibit space that we need to be able to compete. This project will be finished probably in about a year. We're working with the general contractor right now to make sure that we meet that deadline because we have a lot of events in 2024 that need this space and need the loading docks and don't want it to be under construction. The other thing that we're doing that I mentioned was to take down this Quadrani garage. This was privately built in the 60s. It was across the street from the convention center when the convention center was built in the 70s. And when the southern expansion was done, it was actually designed to wrap around this existing garage, which had been there for the Dillard's department store. Stix Fuller, to those of you who were around before Dillard's. It was never attached to the convention center, but everybody thought it was the convention center garage. The owners had absolutely no incentive to make any improvements to it because we gave them business every single day. And so it deteriorated to a terrible condition. So there was enough money in the bond issue to actually acquire that and tear it down. There isn't money in the bond issue to actually build it up, but we are working with the Municipal Finance Corporation. We are lending money to this project to turn it into a surface parking lot, which we do need to have a much nicer one than we've had in the past around, but we do need to have it during the construction phase. That's a temporary fix that will provide parking while all of this construction is going on for the next 2 to 3 years, and until we can find some additional funds to redevelop it further. But we've got a good plan for doing that. Our board approved that, us lending that money, and we'll get paid back by being able to charge parking and recoup that. Here's another look, a person level instead of that bird's eye level of what that Cole Street dock is going to look like. You won't even be able to tell there are loading docks behind it, and it will really be a huge improvement to the neighborhood overall. And here's another close-up look at that food garden, the food farm on the west side of the new expansion, and a look at what that expansion is going to look like in terms of its overall aesthetics. Gone are the big tall white walls. Everything has a better color to it. It's got some windows to it, and we're putting green space around it to make the neighborhood and the experience that the attendees have much more appealing than it ever has been since it was built. So just I'm going to do a recap here on where we are with this project from a financial standpoint. What you'll see here in the green is elements from the original ordinance that have already been funded with the project funds. That includes the acquisition of the real estate. It includes demolishing the garage to the west and preparing the site and getting the 9th Street abatement done so that we could expand that exhibit hall. What you see in blue are the things that also are funded. As Alderman Coder said, that this project one is entirely funded with the funds that have already been issued. And so these elements are in blue. They're not finished. They're under construction right now, but they are fully funded. That includes the Hall 4 expansion to the west, which we just looked at. That includes all the support space for that, which includes the loading docks for it, but also back of house, restrooms, storage space for bleachers, all those things that are outside of the exhibit hall, but still within the footprint, and the food farm to the west, as well as access points to the south, emergency egress, and all of the things required when you put large numbers of people in a building. You have to also figure out how they're going to get in and get out. And then, as I said, also the addition of the loading docks to the north. So all of that's well underway and is funded. The additional $30 million that the mayor's office lobbied very hard and worked very hard with the other partners on the NFL settlement to secure kind of off the top, not part of the city's share, not part of the county's share, but off the top for the convention center. And as Mr. Boyd described, the work with the RSA for their concurrence. It is not enough to fill the gap completely, but it is enough to do a lot of what we need to do. And so I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about what we will do with this $30 million above and beyond what is already being done. First, there are some funds that will still remain from the original project fund, but not enough to do anything in large parts. So the $30 million will be added to some remaining funds. And with that, we're going to address these additional elements from the original bill. And when I go to the next slide, I'll show you all of the elements from the original bill. But I just want to describe this process that we got through when the Board of Aldermen approved this bill in 2018, which had the support of the mayor and the comptroller. They wanted to ensure that there was a clear understanding of what was going to be done with those funds, and that those funds wouldn't necessarily be, the use of those funds couldn't necessarily be changed. So there were some very specific elements that were laid out in terms of what could and needed to be done with those funds. So when I call out these green number 4 and 12 and the blue number 1, 2, and 3, and these ones that you see in red here, these are the numbered elements in the board bill. And as I said, I'll get to the full board bill in just a minute. So with the additional $30 million, we're going to be able to make some improvements to the outdoor plaza. That outdoor plaza today is a surface parking lot. We are going to be able to do some of the west access addition. We are going to be able to do all of the elements for the Washington Avenue entrance and the lobbies, including the canopies, the lighting, the signage, the terrazzo floor on the entire first floor, and be able to replace the skylights that are in the second floor atrium. And again, all of those are specific elements. And I will show you what we've got in terms of some renderings or some examples of what those things are in just a minute. Here are all the original elements from the bill. And so 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all, or in the cases of numbers 5 and 8 will be partial, will be able to be done, leaving still some other things that are important for us to do, but that we don't feel we have the funds to tackle in their entirety at the moment. So here are the things that, again, just what we can show you in terms of the 30 million added to the remaining funds. The Washington Avenue entrance, which I talked about at the very beginning, which was done in, was completed in 1993. Actually opened in 93, was designed in the late 80s. Beautiful front, but it is showing its age, showing its wear and tear. And it's also, you know, we've discovered over the years that there were a few things that were left out that really should have been added. Key among them are actual signage on the building, calling it America Center. There's actually no signage on the building that says it. And I can't even tell you how many times somebody will walk in and say to our public safety people in the lobby, what is this building? Or better yet, can you tell me where to find America Center? So signage on the building is an important thing for wayfinding for these people from out of town who are trying to find America Center. And then also lighting, and particularly at night. The building is lit inside. The lobbies inside have lighting, but there's really nothing on the exterior. And so to create a better welcoming place, a better feeling of safety and security, particularly in the winter months when people are leaving here at 5 or 5:30 or 6, and it is already dark, or year round, even when we have events where people are here in the building going to general sessions and hearing speakers at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, which we just had in January, earlier this past month, where we had sessions going until 11 or 11:30 every night with an 18,000 person convention. The lighting is a key element to that. And then the canopies, which were designed, were beautiful glass canopies in 1993, but they haven't held up, and they don't provide a solid protection from the elements. So if it's pouring rain or if it's sleeting, they're these little beautiful shell scallop designs, but they've got holes all the way through. So we'll create a solid canopy that will actually create cover as people are waiting for their shuttle buses to come up, or their Uber or their taxi cab. So that's the overall improvement outside. And then inside, we will be completely covering the lobbies. What you see here are the legacy of a plan to do terrazzo flooring that didn't work out so well. And what has happened over time is that whatever was done sub level wasn't done right. And we now have a sea of cracks that look like rivers on a map throughout the lobbies. And it would be very expensive to jackhammer all of that up, re-level it, pour new terrazzo. So we've got a beautiful carpet design those are carpet tiles, and the whole lobby will get a total refresh, and it'll look like we actually care about our building. It will be just a beautiful entry, and the corridors all the way back to the original building will get recovered. I mentioned partial west access, and the key here and why we absolutely have to do this is we've got this new hall under construction, which we're calling Hall X right now until we rename the halls when it's finished. But the new exhibit hall doesn't, when we divided the projects into Project 1 and Project 2, the new lobby, because it was going to be a full access, and it was anticipated that even though we were starting the one project early because we needed the steel, that in fact, both projects would be completed at the same time because project 2 wouldn't take as long. The lobby entrance, the west access entrance into that new exhibit hall was designed in project 2. So we need to shift that to project 1 in order to create that new lobby at the point where Martin Luther King Drive and 9th Street come together. And that will provide access to the new exhibit hall. Will also create this new entrance into the existing exhibit halls by adding some space to the current building and extending the current building out further to the west, creating a corridor that people can enter the building from. Right now, as you'll recall from the earlier photographs, all we have right now is a big solid wall that goes up more than 40 feet and has no access points for people to get into the building from the west side. And there happens to be a hotel immediately across the street that was there when the original building was built. But now people have to walk to the south several blocks and around to get in. So creating this west access point, this will be a big part of that $30 million project. And here's another look at that. This angle, this rendering of this angle is looking from 10th Street along Martin Luther King back to 9th Street and what that new corner will look like and that new lobby that will provide access into the new space. And then the last thing, which is it is not a complete project on this side. It is a partial project, but it is critical for us to be able to do some grading work and stormwater retention work to be able to lay that grass that you see there. Right now, we have a surface parking lot that is not level. The grade is much higher at 10th Street than it is at 9th Street. And what you have is a lot of stormwater that makes its way into 9th Street and actually into the exhibit halls, into the building when we have heavy precipitation. We've worked with MSD to create an entirely new stormwater plan, including a retention basin and tank underneath the ground that will go under where you're looking at this surface parking lot right now. And all of the stormwater will get directed so that it goes into that grassy area and comes in underground. And doing that piece is a critical piece to doing anything else in this place. So we'll be able to do that work, working with MSD and working with the contractors on the utilities that have to get routed in and around through there, and creating the stormwater plan that will level out that space, and then providing the grass cover on top. What we don't think right now we'll be able to do is to do some of that hardscape and the plantings and the seating areas. But we'll just have to see how that goes. But right now, that's not in the plan. It's in the plan to get the park itself going so that we will be able to use that for events. And it will have green space that will be a huge benefit to the neighborhood. Just immediately on the south side of this space is T-Rex and all the businesses that are in T-Rex. Also immediately to the south is Banker's Loft and all the residents that are there. Immediately to the north, you have the Holiday Inn. And to the west, you have a number of different businesses, including where Square is located in the old Post-Dispatch building, where the Post-Dispatch is located in the new building, all the work and the businesses that have been put into the Globe building, and many, many others. So that green space will be a huge addition to the neighborhood. So those are the basic elements that we're doing. I would just want to talk for 1 second about the timing. As Mr. Boyd described and Alderman Coder described, this $30 million in the Rams settlement was given to this project, solely for this project, unless not approved by the Board of Aldermen by June 30th, and then it reverts back to the RSA. But we know we only have a few meetings left before the Board of Aldermen go on break. And if we don't address it before that break, that puts the schedule in terms of our ability to move forward with ordering materials. Again, going back to the supply chain issue and everything, that puts it further down the road. And we would really like to get a move on this to keep the schedule on track and be able to go out to a contractor to be able to order the materials to move forward, especially on that Martin Luther King and 9th Street lobby, as well as some of the other things that will need to be ordered. So the timing is very important to us. Chairman Oldenburg, that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions or take comments. We also, as I noted, we have Craig Lucas from Kwame Building Group here with us, and we also have Ned Kirschbaum with Fentress Architects here with us, able to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kitty. So let's go down the list. I mean, there are a lot of participants here. So Kitty, I will look to maybe you to quarterback the questions that may come from the committee members to who's best suited to answer.
Thank
That
you.
works.
And if it's all right with you, I'm going to keep sharing my screen here in case we have to go back to one of these slides with a question. So I'll leave that open if that's all right with you.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Thank you. We will go in order of seniority here. Alderwoman Ingracia, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Gunther.
Thank you, Chairman Oldenburg. Kitty, we spoke yesterday. Thank you for taking my call and going over some of these things. But one of the things I forgot to ask about is when I guess a few years back, pre 2018 or 2019, when we did the original bill for this, one of the main issues that the convention center had was with the kitchens. And I was going back to look, or I was trying to pick up on your notes there about the expansion for the kitchen services. Is that not included in this, in the $30 million?
That is correct. And I'm going to go back to that slide here. So these are the elements that are prescribed by the ordinance. You'll see numbers 6 and 7. It's 6, the kitchen and the pre-function space and the ballroom. Those we don't believe we have the funds to do that project properly at present time.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember that because it made quite the impact of being in the kitchen in the basement and then pushing carts all the way through the hallways of the basement, up elevators, up to the ballroom, when you guys were showing us how much of a need that kitchen was. So hopefully we'll get the money for that somewhere else. And but I do appreciate you taking my call yesterday. And so no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Rice.
Thank you. Thanks, Kitty, for the thorough update here. I think it's good as members of this committee to get that sort of the whole overview of the project and see really where you're at and where the funding is coming from these elements. Yeah, I'm grateful we're moving forward. I'm grateful we were able to at least find you this amount of money, and hopefully we can finish off the project well, because it's such an impact on the region to have a functional convention center. I used to work in the T-Rex building right there, and I know those folks are scrambling a little bit about the parking, but they'll figure that out, and we can work with them on that. But it made such an impact to have to the restaurants down there, to the hotels, to everyone in the area, to have people in our downtown. And that's one of the things that we talk about, even from a public safety standpoint, is the more people that we have in our spaces, the safer they tend to be, because there's folks who are using space and enjoying that space. And so thank you for the update. I'm also really glad to know that folks really like our city. That's always good input to have on the evaluation end as well. So thank you for being such a good ambassador for our city.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I agree with your points completely. The more people we have on the streets, the more everybody feels comfortable being on the streets. And it is really great and very satisfying when we hear that people love the experience that they have here.
Great. Alderman Todd, any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. Kitty, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm really excited about this. I'm also want to say congratulations on getting Beyonce. That is amazing for our city. I think that was some of the best news I read today. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are very excited about that. So that's huge. I'm very interested in the improvements to the outdoor plaza. I was excited about them when I saw the presentation before when we were talking about funding this project, and now to see that it's going to come to fruition. How will that be maintained? Is that just part of is that a new ongoing cost that you're all going to have to take on, or?
Yeah, it will. It will become a part of the convention center, so it will be our responsibility.
Okay, awesome. Well, I really can't wait for it. And thank you for taking the time to answer some of my questions earlier as well, and for all the work you've done on this project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Perfect. Alderwoman Peel, any questions? Alderwoman Peel?
No, thank you. I support this project and feel that these are really necessary changes for us to move forward to have a state-of-the-art convention center.
Great. Thank you. Alderman Stevens, any questions?
Okay, can you hear me now, Chairman?
And
okay, terribly sorry about that. Ms. Ratcliffe, would you mind going to the slide with the outdoor expansion, please? The outdoor plaza, that is.
That one?
Yes, perfect. So that after photo, was it intended to quite brilliantly parallel the updates to the Gateway National Expansion Memorial?
It was intended to, the whole design, and I can let Ned Kirschbaum address this, but it was really intended to focus on the Mississippi River. And so a lot of the design elements are both inside and outside the building were done with a focus on the confluence. And Ned, maybe you could describe the canopy that they see there and the intent there with the visual that the team had at Fentress.
Sure, Kitty. We always like to take some local element of the either architecture or landscape as a stepping off point for our design. And we were inspired by the Mississippi and Missouri River and the confluence of the two, as well as some of the patterns in the water there. And so we actually call that drop-off canopy the confluence canopy. It is an abstraction of where the Missouri meets the Mississippi, and much of the architecture and the design is generated from that big design idea. As far as the park is concerned, it's a combination of responding to the grades that Kitty talked about and trying to create a as level a possible site near where you're seeing, and then an outdoor plaza outside of what will be the pre-function in if we have the funding for that piece is available. So that's the intent, and the exterior was designed by a local landscape firm, Arbalope Studios, and they've done a fabulous job to create a wonderful space, and we're hoping to find the funding to actually do all of the work here at some point in the future.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate the response from the both of you regarding that. You know, I think the city of St. Louis is such a beautiful city, and these renders really show that this project is only going to add to that substantially so. And I think we could draw a parallel between, you know, this after photo and not only the confluence theme, which I definitely see now, thank you, but also the new arch grounds, also the forest park, also the greenery of the city of St. Louis, and just all of it. So I was a huge fan of this project back, oh gosh, nearly 2 years ago, I think, when it was first presented to the new board. I do regret that we can't fund it fully or with greater rigor. But I'm happy to support this bill, and I do just want to praise Ms. Ratcliffe once again for being the woman who brought Beyonce to St. Louis. So,
Thank
wow,
you.
it takes an entire team, Ms. Ratcliffe.
Thank you.
I think it's fair to attribute that to you.
Well, I'll take it, but I didn't actually do it. I just, approved some terms on the deal, but our building manager, Matthew Dewey, really did that one. So I'll pass on your congratulations to him, because he's the winner in this one. Although I got lots of great emails today from people who are new friends.
Excellent. We're actually working on a nameplate, Miss Ratcliffe, Beyonce Bringer, but I'll cancel the order. But I would ask that I be added as a co-sponsor to this board bill, if that is okay, Ms. Heggs. Perfect. And thank you, madam. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Okay, I do have a few questions, maybe just to wrap up and move forward. I just want to make sure I have the chronological order here and the timing correct, Kitty. Originally, we had a $210 million project, correct? Expansion project. Correct. And because of the delays in St. Louis County issuing bonds, we were unable to have the full set of our sources in order to know then what the construction costs might be in balancing that budget. So as a result of when bonds finally did get issued, strike price was locked in on. Construction costs were in a different world as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And RSA, being one of the plaintiffs in the NFL settlement, received before that settlement was kind of issued and divided. Those funds were divided. RSA, a portion off of the top was agreed upon by those plaintiff parties to head for this project. And
Yes,
that's where
I wasn't in
correct.
those meetings myself, so I can't speak to how that all played out. But yeah, so they have 70 million for the dome, which we're very, very glad we need that for the dome, and then 30 million for the convention center.
Got it. Okay. Do we know, it's safe to say at this point in time, we are funding aspects of the full project. And I think you smartly divided it into two smaller projects, project 1 and 2, as you described. Do we have a sense that now that we do have much less of a scope for what would be all the things we wanted, the elements in project 2, do we have a sense that will that impact the city luring and marketing itself for more attractions? Do we think that will be an impact, or will this 30 million, you think, put us at a better advantage?
Well, the 30 million will definitely put us at a better advantage. There are a lot of elements here. We can do a really nice refresh on this building, from the Washington Avenue entrance to the Cole Street side, and on the west side with the addition of some green space. And then some interior improvements with the flooring and the skylights, which I didn't really touch on, but just to replace the 1977 skylights that are all cracked. And so it is an overall better experience, which, a lot of the customers that we work on, the process is that, eventually the salespeople are successful enough in getting the customer to commit to come here on a site visit. And then they come in and they take a look at not only the building itself to make sure the building meets its needs, but they look at everything from air service to hotels to all the other things. But it's that impression that they have of the building that a lot of these improvements will help with a lot. And while I'm disappointed we don't have enough funds to do the ballroom right now, and I do think, and back to Alderman Gunther's comment, that is something that we want to have happen, and that we said from the beginning we wanted to have happen. In the interim, until additional funds are found, the exhibit hall stays the exhibit hall. and we're adding exhibit hall space. So we actually have more, we will actually end up with more exhibit hall space, even though we won't have a ballroom. So that does work for us for a lot of groups, like the trade show we have in today, moving in this Trans World, the Haunt Show, which is a closed trade show. They just keep wanting more and more exhibit space. So there are some groups that the ballroom won't impact at all. But there are others, the professional associations, that the ballroom and the kitchen, we eventually want to get that done. Does that answer the question?
It does. And I guess it's probably just too difficult to quantify how much additional convention business we might get as a result of making these improvements. I certainly understand the power of a site visit from a convention or a customer or group wanting to come here and seeing the good improvements. But is there any way to quantify how much more business the city might get or attractions we will receive as a result of kind of making those $30 million improvements?
Yeah, it is a hard thing for me to quantify. And unfortunately, it's easier to quantify the losses by not having certain things than it is to quantify what we get
Fair enough.
the improvements when they aren't complete. But I think we could take a look at we'll take a look at it and I'll see if I can get you something. I mean, we certainly did quantify what the improvements the full plan was going to do, but that was the specific elements of the ballroom space, which we don't have here. So I can't use those as an example, right? I'd have to figure out how to modify that and reach out to the consultants that did the study.
Yeah, it might be helpful. I mean, again, just I'm from sort of moving this forward for a larger discussion at the board, of course, but maybe those operating assumptions or those projections that you might have of additional business we might receive would just be helpful. And then I have a clarifying point too. I just want to make sure that the repayment of the bonds, that is sourced through a hotel tax, correct?
Yes, there is a 3.5% tax on hotels in both the city and the county. That is used as the baseline for that. And then in the city, there's also a restaurant tax.
That
goes towards that.
Understood. That's perfect. That's helpful. And then this might be a question for Mr. Boyd, just because I know, Jared, the mayor's office was involved in the settlement agreement and the negotiations among plaintiffs of the NFL settlement. Knowing that these funds revert automatically based on the language in that document, do we have any sense what the RSA might use if this 30 million comes back? Have they done any planning in a result of that? Because my point here is there are uses in front of us with this expansion, and I think that's a good thing. I don't know if the RSA has any planning on what they might use it for if they were to get it back.
I am not sure as to how they would use this $30 million. I think during negotiations, they mentioned a need to modify the entrances to the convention center. There are pinch points between the convention center and the dome, and I think they're seeking to use hopefully some of the proceeds they've received, some of that $70 million to address those pinch points. But as to kind of the menu of renovations that they're going to pursue, I'm not sure. That's, I think, something the RSA will consider, but hopefully kind of follow through on.
Yeah, well, and certainly the reason for agreeing to allow the Board of Aldermen to be the vessel to appropriate it here, they felt it was a better use, but I certainly probably just wanted to make sure it got spent and they would take it back if not. So that squares with my logic. Okay.
Sure. I would also offer that a lot of the money will simply be used for ongoing repairs. I don't know how much money will go towards renovations. I think they're going to be able to invest this money for a very long period of time, or a portion of this money, because they are mindful of the fact that they will stop receiving state funding, city funding, and county funding. So they have no revenue stream for capital repairs on
Improvements
on an ongoing
over the years.
basis.
That makes sense to me too. Okay. I have nothing further. We went through all the committee members. Alderman Cotter, we will kind of come back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Sorry, my hand's up.
Certainly.
It's hard to see. with
Yeah.
the-
Oh, you know what?
Thanks.
I am operating from my phone, so I apologize. Thank you for interjecting there, Alderwoman. Please proceed.
Sure. Thank you so much. Just a quick question along that line. Jared, thank you for clarifying about the investment and sort of the ongoing capital need there. I realize it's slightly tangential to this bill, but I guess there's some question in my mind as to where the monies that have been given to the city, the county, the different agencies, how that was split. Is the money that the city is still holding, is that in an investment? Is that in a growing account at this point?
Yes, the treasurer is actively investing the city's $280 million at this moment.
Okay, great. That was one of those. I know there's been a lot of news stories, but we haven't had a conversation as this committee as far as kind of where all of that shuffled out. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Does it look like any other hands raised? Anybody else? Okay, we will call it there. Alderman Cotter, we'll take it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kitty and her team for their presentation, and Mr. Boyd for joining us. I don't really have anything else to add. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and I appreciate you all jumping on and your questions. And I'm not on the committee, but I hope you'll all pass this out with a do pass recommendation.
Certainly, I will recognize and or entertain a motion to do just that from a committee member.
I'll make a motion that we pass Board Bill 130 out of the Conventions and Tourism Committee with a do pass recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's made, seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll for vote.
Alderwoman Ingracia,
Aye.
Alderman Gunther,
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel,
Aye.
Alderman Stevens,
Aye.
Chair Odenberg.
Aye.
We have 8 aye votes.
Great. My motion sustained. You sustained the motion by vote, and we have passed out of committee with a do pass recommendation, Board Bill 130. Thank you, Mr. Cotter. Thank you, Kitty and team.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, looking at our agenda, we have no resolutions to review, no committee discussion, and announcements. I won't entertain any if you have any, so let's go to excused members. Do we have any excused members?
No.
All right, perfect. Let's entertain a motion for adjournment, team.
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. All right, we'll see everybody next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.